Hello and welcome to week 6 of this so-called rainy season gardening journal. So-called because, as you might guess from me opening on a very slow zoom into a cactus, we are dry right now. We are very dry. As I'm recording this, there is finally some cloud building, but I still feel very much like I'm melting. Usually in December I don't have to worry about the heat, because it's a wet month, but then you realize this is the month where we have one of our 2 longest days, and yeah, it is a very hot time of year, much hotter than I would have really given it credit for. So yeah, it's hot. Point of note, this is a cactus. This is Mexican gooseberry. It's a very weird cactus, but it's a cactus, and you can see it is not happy. The Delinix, the flamboyant, is happy. It is flowering. But that's about it. It thinks it's the dry season, so it's going all out on its flowers, so yay for it. Anyway, our jackfruit tree decided that it was too hot, and so it started, it went a bit Roe versus Wade, if you know what I mean. It decided it wasn't going to finish developing its fruit, so they're all a bit small this year, and a couple of them are having to be taken off early. This one was starting to rot in the top and getting full of ants, so I thought, cut my losses, cut it off the tree, leave it in the sun for a couple of days to stop bleeding latex, and then then see what was usable. Now, usually with a jackfruit that is not fully ripened, you would want quite a lot of oil. I didn't use any oil for this one because it was nice and soft, it smelled fully ripe, and you could feel the skin was not tough. I guess it's something you kind of get used to. It's not something I can really explain. It felt like it wouldn't be oily, and sure enough, just washing my hands with a little bit of washing up liquid when I was done with this, and there was nothing else to worry about. Usually, once you've butchered a jackfruit, if it's got any latex left in it, I find you spend several days trying to get it off your hands and arms and legs and face, and yeah, any exposed bit of skin is covered usually. But yeah, when they've gone a bit soft, when they've gone a bit, basically if a little part of it has gone putrid, the rest of it is very often very usable. Jackfruit is actually, when full grown, one of the world's largest fruits. I think it's possibly the largest edible fruit on any tree. I don't know if it's the largest overall. They can get up to 30 kilos. Obviously, this is a long way below that. Part of that is we're just outside of their sort of ideal range in terms of rainfall and temperature. It does try and fruit more than once most years. It's just it only manages when it times it well for the rainy season. So usually only once per year. And this year it's not the worst year. It's got a few coming, but yeah, that it is clearly losing them a little bit earlier than it had initially planned to. This and a couple of other smaller ones were not healthy. You can see the brown discoloration that was actually forming on the tree before I took it off. What I usually do, as I've done here, is I take a small knife. I used to use a very large knife, and I found this just meant that I ended up cutting into the stem in the center of the fruit and getting latex everywhere. You use a small knife on a ripe jackfruit and just cut through the outer skin, and then you go in with your fingers. It is a fiddly process. Go in with your fingers and you just peel the pods out, so that there's fleshy yellow pods inside. I guess it's an aggregate drupe. I'm not entirely sure how you would classify jackfruit fruit-wise, but there's basically these yellow sleeves with a single seed inside each. The seed and the sleeve are edible. There is another layer around the seed, which, as far as I know, is not. It's not pleasant, and it's very inclined to slide into your teeth, like the hard, inedible bit in popcorn. But yeah, basically, if you use a small knife, then you just basically go slowly around the stem, and you get a lot less stuck to you, I find. And you can use a small knife just to basically slowly cut the fruiting pods away from the stem. This sort of yellow spaghetti-looking stuff that's everywhere. If I had cut this jackfruit green, that is actually the part I'd be wanting the most. I think it is actually edible even once it's ripe, but I am not prepared with recipes, so the chickens the chickens will be getting this part. Jackfruit pods are pretty delicious when they are raw, I find, but I also enjoy them if you make them into a sorbet. They can be very easily made into a sorbet. Basically, you add a cup of water, a cup of sugar, and just over a cup of jackfruit. You whir it around in a blender. Like a teaspoon or two of lemon juice doesn't hurt either. Whir it around in a blender, then you pop it in the freezer for a couple of hours. I just use a large yogurt tub, and then you take it out every 2 hours or so, blend it again, and repeat 3-4 times, and you get a nice homemade sorbet with a very distinctive flavour. Jackfruit, I think that's the best thing I could say about jackfruit. It has a very distinctive flavour, and if you're there for it, it's great. If you're not, some people find it very off-putting. The closest I can say is probably if banana had a love child with pineapple. So that's the jackfruit. In this heat, there's not really a great deal doable in the garden. You don't want to prune most trees, especially ones that are exposed, when you don't know when the rain's going to come. I mean, there is actually thunder outside now, which is, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, although the clouds look like they're going to bypass us and hit further into town. But so what I did what I thought I'd focus on is just things that were growing on paths, basically. There is a small peach tree here. I did cut just the suckers off that. Well, not suckers. It's just some of the low water shoots that it really doesn't need. It is in quite a shady spot, so it shouldn't mind too much. And also, as I'm going through cutting the paths here, it's getting a lot of mulch, which should keep it nice and cool. So most of what I'm cutting back here is commelina. It could root from the bits I'm cutting off. I don't really want more of it. It is a very effective understory, but it's a little bit aggressive. Now here it's Plectanthus, which is actually slightly more desirable. Both of them are actually quite good hosts for butterfly. I can't think which one's the commelina host. Plectanthus is very good for a lot of the Pressis and Junonia butterflies, which are really very lovely, quite common butterflies, very colourful, and so they will use this Plectanthus, so it's quite a good thing to plant around just to sort of boost your butterfly population. This is part of my what I charitably call my garden or the maze, but it's more of a thicket most of the time. So the paths are there for access, and so I can wander through it without not knowing where I put my feet, which, because it does occasionally get used by one of the spitting cobras, it is nice to know where I'm putting my feet. This time of year, I'm fairly sure the spitting cobra is not bothering to be out during the day. It is plenty hot for it to be active at night. But the main reason for this cutting back on the path and off the paths is all of these plants are originally, well, all the plants I'm cutting back here are all originally here just for bioaccumulation. They are just, I want more carbon in the soil because that's going to improve your moisture content. It's going to sort of dilute any pollutants that might still be in there from previous usage. This is a tamarind tree, and this is actually, I was sure this was an Indian tree. It's actually native, native to parts of Africa, whether to Lusaka is unclear. But cutting all of this, it's just carbon feeding. Obviously the tamarind I do intend to eventually get food from, but these ferns, this Plectanthus, they provide a space and they hold humidity, but their main function, well, if they have a main function, a major function is just carbon in the soil. And it's, I really don't know how I can overstate it, but it's like we're always adding nitrogen and phosphate and potassium to soils in agriculture, and we kind of destabilize the soils a lot when we do that. You add carbon and you encourage your fungus, and those make a lot of the chemicals you're trying to get hold of a lot more available. There are funguses that are not great, but generally speaking, in any ecosystem, more diversity is more stable. So if you're just adding one type of dead plant, you can end up getting a small number of funguses, and you get, that's when I'd start to worry about pathogens in your plants. But when you're adding the widest possible range, the most diverse array of different plants into a fairly small area, you're hopefully going to encourage a much wider range, and you're not going to get that sort of pathological dominance of one species of fungus, which is going to, damage everything else. For more or less the same reason, I have Pistia and Salvinia, I think it's called, a type of aquatic fern that someone gave me growing in this pond. They get very dense periodically, which really rapidly reduces the water level, and so they have to be gathered up and chucked out. I should have done it a while ago because they've been consuming a lot of water, but it does mean that everything around gets a little bit more humidity, which is good for the orchids, good for a lot of the plants actually. I was slightly concerned, as this is one of the ponds that our puddle frogs are very fond of, but they actually started singing pretty much just after I'd got out of this pond, and they, by the next day there were actually a couple of fresh mounds of frog spawn. So with apologies to any of the fishing spiders that might have got thrown out with this, but there will be plenty more prey because the puddle frogs seem to appreciate the increased water surface that is available to them, because I don't think they enjoyed having to squeeze down between layers of Nile cabbage to get to the water to produce their spawn, shall we say. So that's actually pretty much it for this week. Just in case anyone out there, maybe in the vicinity of the city of Leicester, had trouble last week with a horrible leggy thing that appeared at the end, which was actually a Chongololo from the genus Lophostraphus, basically a tank version of an earthworm, not taxonomically at all, just in terms of behaviour, that's more or less what it does. Drought resistant as far as Chongololos go, very solidly built little millipede that just chugs along and eats everything that doesn't try and run away, which is to say leaves and poo and carrion. But yeah, there's a trigger warning now, so if you don't want to see a small spider waving its legs around, I will ask you to click away in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, everyone that is still here, this is a dandy spider. They are a type of jumping spider. The lighting is not great. It was in the kitchen. They are not the cutest of the jumping spiders. That goes to almost every other type of jumping spider. But they prey almost exclusively on other jumping spiders, and they are, as far as I understand it, they're little deceptors. They wave their little arms around in a pattern that can convince other jumping spiders that they are, well, they're a honey trap. Call them a honey trap. So this is Portia, so the dandy spider. So yeah, enjoy, and see you next Tuesday.